The pounding wasn't gentle. It carried the rhythm of an emergency, something primal and sharp that ripped through the last thread of sleep. 3 hits. A pause. 2 more. Like someone trying to wake a corpse. I shot awake. 4:50 a.m. glared red across my bedside clock, the digits pulsing like a warning. This neighborhood didn't even stir until 8. Dawn wasn't for another 40 minutes. The whole world outside should have still been stitched shut in darkness. Another bang rattled my door. I sat up, heart drilling against my ribs. Who the hell? A voice followed, shrill, clipped, strangely rehearsed. Open the door. This is the HOA. Your lease has expired. You're required to vacate immediately. Lease? I rubbed the sleep out of my eyes, the sentence rolling around like loose metal in my head. Lease. I'd owned this house for 3 years. The knocking intensified. Sir, open the door. Now. A cold edge crept through me, something instinctual. This wasn't normal irritation from some overzealous neighborhood manager. This was urgency mixed with authority, the kind people only use when they believe they're absolutely right. I reached for the hallway light but didn't turn it on. Instead, I moved quietly, letting the darkness be my cover. My house, my sanctuary, felt different in the pre-dawn gloom, like it wasn't entirely mine anymore. Another voice chimed in outside. Male this time, lower, firmer. We can proceed with forced entry if necessary. Your lease is terminated as of midnight. My pulse snapped upright. Forced entry. I stepped closer to the door, careful not to let my feet creak the wood floor. Through the peephole, I saw 2 figures in reflective HOA vests, one holding a clipboard, the other gripping some kind of tool looked like a pry bar. This wasn't a misunderstanding. They came prepared. The woman with the clipboard spoke again, voice slicing through the air. Your landlord reported the lease ended. If you resist this process, we're authorized to initiate penalties. Landlord. I didn't have one. I unlocked the deadbolt halfway, enough to let my voice through but not enough for anyone to barge in. You've got the wrong house. A flashlight hit the tear-shaped peephole, washing my vision in white. The man replied, This is 1835 Amber Ridge Lane, correct? Yes. Then we're exactly where we need to be. Something twitched inside me. Not fear. Calculation. Who told you the lease ended? I asked. A pause. A shuffle. Paper flipping. We have official documentation, the woman said. Signed and submitted yesterday. By who? Your landlord. My house doesn't have a landlord. Silence. The kind that thickens the air. Then the woman spoke again, but softer, like she'd rehearsed this line for courtroom drama. Sir, you need to comply. The paperwork is valid. I steadied my voice. The paperwork is fake. The man lifted the pry bar. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. I locked the door fully again. Inside my lungs, breath stacked like stones. Outside, I heard them whispering. Fast. Anxious. Something wasn't going according to their plan. My hands moved on their own toward my home office, toward the locked drawer where I kept the deed. A habit I'd picked up after the neighborhood started changing. New board members. New rules. Random inspections. But nothing ever close to this. The house was quiet, too quiet, as if the walls were listening. I retrieved the deed, crisp and sealed, the official embossed stamp catching the dim blue streetlight bleeding through my blinds. Proof of ownership. Proof of identity. Proof that this intrusion was more than an administrative error. It was targeted. The knocking started again, harder, as if frustration sharpened their confidence. Sir, final warning. My phone buzzed in my hand, unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me not to. I answered. Hello? A breathy whisper. They're not from the HOA. My spine straightened. Who is this? They're not from the HOA. Don't open the door. Don't say anything else. They're checking which houses have physical owners inside. Static crackled, then the call disconnected. I stared at the phone. My breath grew thin, stretched. Outside, a car door slammed. A third voice approached, older, slow, authoritative. What's going on here? The woman spoke with a sudden sugar-coated tone. Mr. Gallows, we were just processing an early lease termination. I recognized that name. Mr. Gallows. The newest HOA president. Moved in 6 months ago. Never smiled. Always walked like he was measuring people. Through the peephole, I saw him step forward, gray hair brushed back like carefully arranged armor. His eyes flicked over my house with a chill I couldn't quite understand. He knocked softly. Sir? I apologize for the disturbance. We just need confirmation. His tone was honey wrapped around steel. I didn't answer. Do you have documentation of ownership? He asked. The question felt too specific. Like he already knew the answer. I swallowed. Yes. Then please show it. The woman and man stood behind him, rigid, waiting. Something was wrong. If this was a real HOA action, there would be protocol, paperwork, emails. Not a dawn raid. Not whispers. Not a stranger calling to warn me. I slid the deed beneath the door slowly, keeping the chain lock engaged. Their shadows leaned in. Mr. Gallows crouched, lifting the document. Even from behind a door, I sensed his expression change. A flicker. A crack in the facade. He read silently. Too silently. Then he spoke. This appears legitimate. Appears? The word stuck like a splinter. The woman stepped closer. So, we're done? A long pause. Yes, Gallows finally said. We're done here. But his tone wasn't relief. It was disappointment. The three walked off, slow footsteps dissolving into the early morning hush. I didn't move until the street went silent. When I finally opened the door, the air smelled like cold asphalt and unfinished business. A set of footprints trailed off toward the cul-de-sac, 3 sets arriving, but only 2 leaving the way they came. The third veered behind the houses. Someone else had been watching. I locked the door again, every bolt, every latch. The deed lay heavy in my hand. My house suddenly didn't feel like shelter. It felt like a target. And whoever started this wasn't done. The sun had barely cracked over the neighborhood when I stepped outside with a cup of coffee and a notebook, my mind still replaying the 4:50 a.m. confrontation like a crime scene. The street seemed too quiet. Too staged. No HOA patrol. No footsteps. No cars moving. As if everyone collectively decided to pretend nothing happened. But something did happen. And I wasn't going to let it go. I snapped a picture of the spot where the HOA officer, Harper, if I remembered her badge right, had stood pounding on my door like she had a warrant. Then I photographed the security camera above my doorway, checking the angle. Good. It caught everything. Or, it should have. I opened the home security app on my phone. Error, missing footage between 4:42 a.m. to 5:01 a.m. My stomach tightened. They hadn't just harassed me. Someone had tampered with my cameras. A quiet, cold thought slipped in. This wasn't a mistake. They wanted no evidence. I headed back inside, pacing in my living room, grabbing my laptop, and pulling up the HOA portal, something I'd barely used since buying the property. Normally my interactions with them were automated emails and the occasional violation about trash cans left out too long. The login page stalled. Then, account flagged. Verification required. Yeah, sure, I muttered, clicking through. A message popped up. Lease expiration notice. Date filed, 4:36 a.m. today. Filed by VP HarperCollins. Lease expiration. Filed before she even knocked on my door. Meaning she hadn't come to investigate. She came to enforce. My pulse thudded hard now. I clicked deeper into property records stored on the portal. The system claimed my home was rented. Owner, unknown/third party holding pending verification. My hands froze on the keyboard. Unknown owner? I had the deed. I had the closing documents. I'd been paying the mortgage for 3 damn years. I clicked the audit log. Someone, username admin02, had edited the ownership metadata at 4:12 a.m. 38 minutes before the knock. This was coordinated. I grabbed my phone and called the only person in this HOA I trusted, my next-door neighbor, Travis. Ex-military, quiet guy, hates HOA politics as much as I do. He answered on the second ring. Dude, did something happen at your place this morning? I heard shouting. They tried to evict me, I said flatly. At 4:50 a.m. A pause. A slow whistle. What? And someone wiped my camera footage. Come over, he said. I've got something you might want to see. His living room smelled like coffee and cedar. He closed the blinds, locked the door, and motioned me toward his computer desk. You're not gonna believe this, he said, pulling up his security footage. My outdoor cam covers your driveway by accident. HOA told me weeks ago to adjust the angle. I didn't. He hit play. The timestamp read 4:41 a.m. A dark SUV, no plates, rolled slowly past my house. It stopped right in front. Someone stepped out. Not Harper. A tall man in a hoodie. He walked directly to my electrical panel. My throat tightened. Travis zoomed in. The figure popped the panel cover, reached in, and did something quick. A power flicker. Camera glitch. Static. Then the footage resumed, but the man was gone. Travis leaned back. They cut your cameras, man. That wasn't random. Why would the HOA do this? I whispered. They're not the ones cutting wires at 4 a.m., he said. This is bigger. Bigger. The word hung heavy. I took out my notebook, flipping to a blank page. My mind worked fast, too fast, trying to connect dots. Timeline. 4:12 a.m. HOA ownership records edited. 4:36 a.m. eviction order filed. 4:41 a.m. unknown male sabotages power. 4:50 a.m. Harper pounds on my door. Everything lined up. But something didn't match, the look in Harper's eyes. She wasn't unhinged. She was scared. Like she was following orders she didn't want to obey. I needed more. Hard proof. Not just digital traces. Travis, can I check your camera angle facing the street? He nodded, scrubbing to the moment after the sabotage. At 4:49 a.m., Harper's HOA-branded vehicle rolled in. She parked, got out, and looked nervously around, glancing at the same electrical box the unknown man had touched. Then she read something on her phone. Her shoulders tightened. She swallowed, bracing herself. She didn't look like a woman acting on a mistake. She looked like someone being watched. Dude, Travis whispered, she's not the mastermind. She's a pawn. I exhaled slowly. Then who's pulling the strings? Travis turned to me. You ever wonder why your house was priced so low when you bought it? I mean, it was almost suspicious. I thought it was the market. He shook his head. Nah. Not like that. I leaned forward. What do you know? Not much, he said. Just rumors. Something about a property dispute years before you moved in. Shady developers. HOA board got mixed up in it. People moved away without explanation. I felt a chill in my spine. And they never wanted anyone living in your house, he added carefully. I stared at him. Then why sell it to me? They didn't, he said. Bank foreclosure deal. HOA had no control. You were an unpredictable variable. And they've been trying to push you out since. My jaw clenched. So they doctored my ownership records hoping to fabricate a reason to remove me. Travis nodded. And whoever that guy was at 4:41 a.m.? He made sure your cameras couldn't prove anything. I stood up. Not anymore. Huh? I'm dropping the deed at the next HOA meeting, I said. Public. Recorded. On their turf. Travis hesitated. You think that's smart? No, I said. But neither is letting them rewrite my life. I left his house with the footage saved on a flash drive, my notebook packed with timestamps, and a knot of anger that had transformed into something sharper, strategy. Back home, I laid everything out on the kitchen table. Laptop, deed, security logs, HOA portal screenshots, Travis's video clips. Piece by piece, a conspiracy formed. Not theory, fact. Someone with admin access. Someone with authority. Someone who knew my house, my ownership, my schedule. Someone inside the HOA board. A single name kept appearing in the portal logs. Admin 02 last login, 4:12 a.m. IP masked. Masked IP. Unauthorized edits. Forced eviction attempt. This wasn't bureaucracy. This was a targeted removal. I sat back, breath tight in my throat, as a final realization hit me. They weren't just trying to evict me. They were trying to erase me from the community records entirely. Like I never lived here. Like the house belonged to someone else. Like they needed me gone before something came to light. And that's something they were willing to use fear, falsified documents, and pre-dawn intimidation to protect it. I pulled out the deed and set it on the table. If they wanted to erase me, they were about to fail very publicly. Tomorrow night's HOA meeting would be the showdown. And I'd walk in prepared. But as I reviewed the footage one last time, something new appeared, something I hadn't noticed before. Just before the unknown man disappeared from the camera feed, he turned his head. And even in the shadows, I saw it. A small patch on his jacket. A symbol. The same one printed on the HOA meeting flyers. A perfect, chilling match. The room smelled like burnt coffee and simmering hostility. The HOA emergency meeting, called regarding residential compliance violations, was already boiling by the time Ethan walked in. Conversations died instantly. Heads snapped toward him, some confused, others openly hostile, a few quietly terrified that things had reached this point. He didn't sit. He didn't greet anyone. He simply closed the door behind him with a soft click, the kind that made people flinch because silence could be louder than shouting. The president of the HOA, Linda Voss, stiffened in her chair like someone had just tightened invisible wires around her ribs. You weren't invited to this meeting, she said, voice sharp, rehearsed, brittle. Ethan stepped forward, calm, carrying the navy blue folder he'd spent the last 24 hours filling with documents, timestamps, security footage, audio files, and one piece of evidence he hoped he'd never need to use. I figured since you tried to evict me at 4:50 a.m., Ethan replied, I earned a seat at the table. A low ripple of murmurs spread through the residents gathered. Some leaned away from Linda, others leaned in like witnesses waiting for a car crash. Linda's lips pulled tight. You are not on lease record. Your property file shows an expired tenancy under your name. That's because you changed it, Ethan said. A few gasps. A few sharp inhales. A few eyes widening. Linda froze. Excuse me? Ethan placed the folder on the central table and opened it. He didn't rush. He wanted every page turned to echo. This, he said, pulling out the first sheet, is the original deed to my house. Dated 3 years ago. He placed it gently, like a chess piece moving into a checkmate position. This, another page, is the county's digital record, also confirming I own the house outright. He dropped a third document. And this is proof your internal HOA system accessed my file at 2:41 a.m. the night before you pounded on my door. Linda blinked. What exactly are you implying? Ethan tapped the next page. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating it. Someone tampered with the HOA database. Someone edited ownership data. Someone wanted me listed as a tenant with an expired lease so you could serve a fake eviction notice. Linda looked around the room as if expecting someone to jump in and rescue her. No one did. She shifted in her seat, hands tightening on her clipboard. Your accusations are wild. And frankly offensive. Then let's look at the evidence, Ethan said. He pulled out the flash drive. The room collectively inhaled. This contains video from my front door camera. It shows 2 HOA board members, both of which are in this room, approaching my house at night, trying to look through the windows, and photographing my electrical meter. Several heads turned sharply. 2 board members paled. Were you surveilling a homeowner in the middle of the night? Someone from the back called out. Linda snapped, this meeting is out of order. No, Ethan cut in. It's just starting. He clicked the remote he'd brought, connecting to the projector the way teachers do before showing a documentary that changes everything. The screen flickered, then displayed grainy footage of 2 men on Ethan's porch, whispering, checking windows, snapping photos, then leaving. The murmurs turned into outright noise, shock, confusion, whispered accusations. One of the men in the video pushed up from his chair. We were asked to verify unauthorized occupancy. By who? Ethan asked. Both men looked at Linda. Every eye in the room turned with them. Linda didn't breathe. This was it, the unraveling. Ethan continued, voice steady. And if that wasn't enough, I found this. He pulled out a printed email, blown up for clarity. Sent 3:06 a.m. From Linda's HOA email. To the Violations Committee. Subject, prepare for forced vacancy compliance. Target, Unit 14B. A beat. Another. Ethan's voice dropped lower. You tried to force a homeowner out of his house. That's not just unethical. It's illegal. Linda finally snapped. You think you can embarrass me publicly, she shouted. You think parading fake documents around makes you right? You don't belong in that house. Silence. The residents froze. Ethan tilted his head. There it is, he said. The part you weren't supposed to say out loud. Linda realized too late she'd said it with a microphone in front of her. Her face drained. One resident spoke first, why would you want him out? Another, what's really going on here? Another, did you target him? The whispers turned fast, chaotic. Judgment. Suspicions. Fear. Anger. A room turning against its authority figure. Linda slammed her fist against the table. Everyone sit down. Nobody leaves this room. But she was done. Her control was gone. Ethan allowed the moment to breathe, then delivered the final blow. He pulled out the last document. A property transfer proposal. Signed. Dated 6 months ago. An offer from Linda's private investment partner to purchase all homes along Ethan Street for redevelopment. If the street had sufficient vacancies. The audience erupted. She wanted him out for profit. This was a setup. She nearly broke into someone's house over money? The board members looked like they wanted to sink through the floor. Someone called for her removal. Someone else yelled for an investigation. Security walked forward. Linda backed away, voice trembling but sharp with desperation. You don't understand, there are bigger. She stopped. Too late. The room froze on that unfinished sentence. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Bigger what? Linda's eyes flicked to the back exit fast. Then back to Ethan. Then to the board members. Someone in the audience whispered. She's scared. For a single second, the entire room felt colder. Before Ethan could speak, Linda bolted for the exit. Security chased. The door slammed. The room erupted again, but Ethan just stared at the doorway she vanished through, because she didn't run like someone guilty. She ran like someone being hunted. And suddenly, the conspiracy felt bigger than a corrupt HOA president. Much bigger. He slowly collected the documents on the table, heart pounding, mind racing. Whatever Linda had started, someone else was going to finish. And he had just made himself their new target. The sun finally broke through the blinds like a reluctant apology from the universe. The neighborhood looked calm again, too calm, in fact. After last night's public ambush of the HOA board, after the screaming, the accusations, the panic, and the reveal of a forged eviction file, you'd expect chaos. Police cars. News vans. Angry homeowners gathering like a mob. But instead? Silence. Clean, unsettling silence. I stepped onto my porch, still hearing echoes of the previous night, the gasps when the crowd saw the forged signatures, the board president's frantic excuses, the stunned look on Tommy's face. The HOA's dirty plan had collapsed in public, but that didn't mean the threat was gone. Usually, mornings in this neighborhood smelled like cut grass and early coffee. Today? It smelled like fear. Not mine, theirs. Across the street, blinds twitched. People watched me the same way you watch someone who just exposed a monster hiding in your basement. Respect mixed with caution. Victory mixed with unease. And somewhere behind all that, a new fear. A bigger one. Something no one wanted to admit yet. I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Because the forged eviction order didn't come from desperation. It came from planning. Coordination. Someone higher up, someone smarter than those board members, had orchestrated it. And they were still out there. 1. Community resolution, surface level calm. By noon, the HOA called for an emergency community meeting, their version of damage control. The same community center where the showdown happened last night now felt like a courtroom missing its judge. Half the chairs were occupied by angry residents, the other half were filled with people pretending they weren't terrified. The board members sat at the front table, looking like school kids waiting for detention slips. The president cleared her throat. After last night's unfortunate misunderstanding, the board has voted to suspend operations pending an external audit. Translation. We were caught red-handed. The treasurer added, with trembling hands, we want to assure residents that this was a clerical error. Someone in the crowd cut him off. A forged eviction is not a clerical error. Murmurs. Anger. Fear. They weren't afraid of the board collapsing. They were afraid of who the board had been working for. Finally, one woman stood up, voice steady but cold. You owe him an apology. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't offer even a nod. The president swallowed hard. We sincerely apologize for the distress caused to you, Mr. Lawson. It didn't sound like an apology. It sounded like a surrender. But even as the board fell apart, even as neighbors whispered apologies to me on the way out, even as the room emptied, I felt the same sensation lingering behind me. Eyes. Watching. Waiting. The threat wasn't gone. It had just retreated. 2. Emotional closure, but only on the surface. Back home, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the deed, my deed, still in its folder. The same document that saved me. The same document that nearly got me kicked out of my own house. Funny how a single sheet of paper can be more powerful than a dozen people pounding at your door in the dark. I exhaled slowly, letting the tension bleed out of my shoulders. I should have felt relieved. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt like someone had opened a door I didn't know existed, and now cold air was seeping in. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You were never supposed to see that file. My heartbeat froze mid-thump. Another text followed immediately. They moved too early. It won't happen again. I stood so fast my chair scraped across the tile. Another message. Next time, it won't be your house we come for. And then the number disappeared, deleted, deactivated, wiped. Like it was never there. So the board wasn't the threat. They were tools. Small fish pushed into big crimes. Someone else had the power to generate documents, fake signatures, manipulate legal systems. Someone who wanted me out for reasons still buried in shadows. 3. A chilling new hint. That night, I walked the neighborhood with a quiet purpose. The streetlights hummed overhead. A dog barked in the distance. The world felt normal, but only because someone wanted it to feel that way. When I reached the community center, I stopped. The door was unlocked. Lights off. Empty. Inside, the air smelled of dust and abandoned paperwork. My eyes landed on the bulletin board. Tacked in the center was a stack of updated HOA notices, new leadership, new audit process, new protocols. But one paper stood out. Not a notice. Not an announcement. A list. A list of addresses. Certain houses were marked with a red dot. Mine was at the top. And there was a heading written in quick, sharp strokes. Phase 2. My throat tightened. I grabbed the paper, scanned for clues, nothing obvious. But the handwriting matched the forged signature on my eviction file. Someone inside the HOA or above it had a larger plan. A multi-phase operation targeting specific homes. But why? Money? Land? A development scheme? Control? Or something deeper, something no one in this neighborhood had considered? A faint creak echoed behind me. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. I turned. Hallway empty. Lights buzzing. Silence swallowing everything. But I knew what I felt. Someone had been there. Someone still was. I backed out of the room, paper in hand, senses sharp as knives. For final moments, open-ended mystery. By the time I reached home again, the night felt heavier. I locked the doors twice. Checked the windows. Turned on every exterior light. Not out of fear. Out of preparation. Because I wasn't dealing with petty HOA harassment anymore. I was dealing with strategy. Planning. Execution. And whoever orchestrated Phase 1 had already started Phase 2. Before heading upstairs, I placed the stolen HOA list on my kitchen counter. Right next to it, I set the deed to my home. The symbol of their failure, and maybe the reason they'd return. As I turned off the light, something caught my eye. A new paper slid under my front door. My stomach tightened. I picked it up. A single line was printed in the center. You exposed the small players. Now you've made yourself visible to us. No signature. No logo. Just a symbol at the bottom. A black triangle with a line carved through it. The same mark I'd seen earlier on the list. The same mark that hadn't been there yesterday. I looked out the window. Across the street, a car engine idled, lights off. Watching. I closed the blinds, the unresolved dread settling like fog in my chest. The board was gone. But the real enemy? The one hiding above them, behind them, around them? Still here. Still watching. Still coming. And this time, it wouldn't be at 4:50 a.m.